Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, coming to you live from our Abuja studio. Standing by with me is the Deputy Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Ekweremadu. Senator, you were finishing your thoughts.
Yes, I was just trying to explain to you the structure we need to put in place to avoid an abuse of the state police, because essentially that's the fear of so many people. People have come to the realization that we need state police, but the fear is how do we ensure that's not abused? And I said it's going to be in the terms of the structure. And remember I said we're going to pattern it after the judicial system we have in Nigeria, which is being controlled by the NJC. So we must have sufficient control to avoid unnecessary abuse. So I said that we're going to have two levels of commission. One at the State Police Service Commission, and at the center we have the National Police Service Commission. And in the composition at the state, and of course, the same thing at the center, you have to put people who are sufficiently independent, and then different organizations, especially reputable ones, should be able to send representatives to those commissions, including the NUJ, including the Bar Association, the Human Rights Community, Public Complaint Commission, in addition to the chairman, which the governor will appoint anyway. But when he appoints the chairman, that's the end of the matter. He can't remove the chairman on his own. It has to go to the House of Assembly before he could be removed. Now, we're going to also have this National Police Service Commission that will have this kind of coloration. Now, the part of the responsibility of the National Police Service Commission will be to recommend to the state government the appointment of a commissioner of police for their state.
Based on the three candidates sent from the state.
So the governor will now make the appointment, and the appointment will still be subject to confirmation by the State Assembly. Now, it's not going to end there. We expect that biannually, the National Police Service Commission will review across the country, state by state, the operations of the respective state police system, and then be able to say you are doing well, you are not using it to hunt political enemies, you are not discriminating against people of certain ethnic groups in that place. And if you don't get the certification, then you may not, unfortunately, you may not continue. So we get to put sufficient control to ensure that this, and don't forget that we're going to ensure that even the states themselves will be represented. Maybe one attorney general, that attorney general of each of the states will be a part and parcel of the National Police Service Commission to ensure that these people don't take undue advantage of the fact that they control the federal system in order to harass the state police service system. And we're also hoping that the state assemblies will also make laws that will also create the community policies. So it's going to be comprehensive.
Senator, we're going to continue our conversation, but at this juncture, I'm going to throw it over to our Lagos studio where my colleagues are standing by. Chamberlain?
Your Excellency, the question I want to ask has to do with that appointment of the commissioner. You talked about names being submitted to the governor to appoint, but you're also taking your examples from other climes where they have the state police and they have structures that work. I believe that in some of those climes, what they do is the commissioner of police is like elected into that office. Wouldn't that be a better structure to give him some level of independence from the executive?
Well, thank you. You see, unfortunately, certain things that work in some of those climes do not work in our own country. So we have to be ingenious. We need to put our thinking cap and look at our environment. So if you now say you're going to elect a commissioner of police, I mean, of course, you know what happens in such matters. So they'll just put somebody they're interested in and get him elected, and then we'll run into a problem. I think that why don't we try something that has worked, which is the NJC system. And as I said, it's one of Nigeria is one of the few countries where we have that kind of system that has worked for us. So I don't subscribe to the issue of saying go and elect a commissioner of police. It's done in some places, you know. So in some places, you don't even need to be a policeman to be a commissioner of police. In South Africa, for instance, the head of the police not necessarily have to be a police person. So you just appoint any person, and it's working for them. Okay. But in Nigeria, you can't do that here, because people just appoint their relations or whoever they want to be police, and then we'll still continue to have problems. So I think that the best system is, we have seen the NJC work. So why don't we structure our police in such a way that it will work just as effectively as the NJC? You know, it may have its own flaws, but at least it has helped to stem the tide, you know, of people complaining that judges are harassing them in their respective states because of the government.
If I may come in here,
that's not a.
If I may come in here, you know, you said something earlier about not many people reporting cases of misdemeanor to the NJC about the judges. How do you think that will play out with the police?
Well, that's why we're thinking that in the composition of both the State Police Service Commission and the National Police Service Commission, we'll have representatives of the Public Complaint Commission, whose job is to receive complaints. So we're going to make sure that all the critical stakeholders are in those commissions, including lawyers who are supposed to ensure that there's justice. We're going to have attorney generals from various states. So we'll have the journalists represented so that they can also interface with the public in the performance of their job on how these things are run. So it's going to be critical mass of people, with sufficient integrity that will be able to drive this. I'm sure that once we have that and they regulate the processes, we're not going to have any abuse. So because the problem there actually is the abuse, not whether it is necessary or not. Because we all come to the conclusion, even those who are not supporting state police initially, I think they're all with us now in the fact that we need state police to ensure that, you see, for me, we should be talking about going beyond state police now. We should be able to have police at different levels, at the communities, at the local government, in their institutions. I was in Lebanon, and I went to their parliament. The speaker was telling me that those police I'm seeing here will still the control of the parliament. The same thing in America, the same thing in the UK. So, but here, somebody will now send police to a National Assembly to protect lives and properties, and then one day you wake up, somebody shows up at the chambers, and then you are presiding, somebody come and remove the mess. That's what you can do because you don't know who sent him, you don't know who he's working for. And then, of course, there's no policeman to stop him or whatever. So because you don't have control of those policemen, this type of thing problem we have, So we need to deal with it if we're going to live peacefully in this country.
All right, Senator, speaking about abuse, which is one of the biggest things you hear people say for those who oppose it, on the part of executives, either at the state or the federal level, is there any consideration, for instance, for Section 308, which grants immunity to either governors or presidents, such that if they are found to use the police wrongly to, for instance, perpetuate political crime, will we amend that Section 308 to the extent that they can then institute criminal prosecution against anyone who is found to have used them in that manner?
Well, that is an option, but I don't think that is the really major concern. But remember that as of today, even the people, when I talk about abuse, and they're making reference to the governors, the present police as we have is also been abused. The federal police has been abused. So the problem is how do you put things in check to ensure that both the federal police and the state police are not abused. Yes, I take cognizance of your suggestion about probably the issue of immunity, especially in criminal proceedings. Yes, we can look at that, but that really doesn't solve the problem. I think solving the problem is to put structures in place to ensure that neither the state government or the federal government abuse the use of the police, because look at it, what is happening today, So they have a lot of challenges all over the place. I have people being killed, people stockpiling arms and small weapons all over the place. And then nobody's doing anything, and then people are just looking the other way. Instead, what they do is to go from one court to another, searching for court order, to get warrants to go and search the properties and premises of political opponents, instead of going to search houses where, of course, we know that people are keeping arms and ammunition to attack others. So that's the problem. There some people are just framed up and said, oh, yeah, you're funding terrorism, you're funding this and funding kidnapping and all that. So it's all kind of abuse. Instead of directing the police appropriately to deal with issues.
Yeah, but Senator...
So that's the major problem. So we need to find a way of dealing with the abuse. It's not something you can run away from.